You're listening to In Kap We Trust for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANY Podcast or on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a rib or two, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
We are officially eliminated. Officially eliminated here at In Kap We Trust, which very well may be the last time this is called In Kap We Trust. I am your host, Shane. I'm joined as always by Rob. Rob, sir, how are you?
I'm doing fairly well. I mean, the inevitable collapse of the Phillies is now complete. They might actually finish the season under 500, which is kind of depressing, but...
Unreal.
But, you know, we saw it coming, so I was able to handle it a little bit better.
Well, you've been out for a while. Like you, what was it? You said you weren't gonna go to another game or watch another game until they won 4 in a row or something.
It was about the middle of August. I kind of emotionally tuned out, and then they had that sweep of the Cubs, so I kind of tuned back in a little bit, and then they fell apart again after that.
Yeah, very on brand for the Philadelphia Phillies this year.
Yeah, pretty much.
You mentioned it, so they very well may finish the season under 500. They're going to finish 4th place in the NL East. Like, how bad do you want this thing to get?
Behind the freaking Mets.
How bad do you want this to get? Do you think that if they tank and basically lose out, Kapler, Klentak, and McPhail are all gone?
I think that Kapler is gone regardless.
So do I.
I think that Klentak is probably, hopefully, gone regardless. And I don't know about McPhail. I think that if they finish sub 500, then McPhail's gone as well.
I hope. I truly hope. That's the only thing. You know, I sit here and, like, look, it would mean a lot as a Phillies fan to sit there and see this team have an above 500 season, a true above 500 season. You know, they would have to win, 3 of the remaining 6 games to do so. They're not looking like they're going to do it.
What was it? Actually, 5 games left, so they'd have to go 3-2. Which put them at 82 and 80. 82 and 80, all right, so 3-2. Which is the most unimpressive winning record of all time.
It really is. You know, it's a shame, you know, and we've seen this weird kind of carousel of blame throughout, I would say, most of this season. You know, because it was, late May when they started to look not so great, and then by June they were really not great. You know, things, it was blame Cap, it was blame Cap, blame Kapler.
Or if you're me, it's blame Malley.
And blame John Malley. You know, and then people started sitting there and realizing, like, holy shit, you just talked about the Mets and the fact that they're going to finish better than us. And what did they do at the deadline as a team that was, by and large, out of the true playoff race at that time?
They got a freaking pitcher.
They got a real pitcher. Now, he's not pitched well for them. But they went out and they got a real freaking pitcher. And what did we do? Well, if we don't make the playoffs, we don't make the playoffs. If we don't, we don't. Eat my ass. You can't say that shit. Not in Philadelphia. That was absurd. And we went out and got Jason Vargas and Drew Smyly.
Unbelievable.
Get the hell out of here. This team, this has been one of the most maddening Philadelphia Phillies seasons I've ever endured. And this is, I've mentioned it before, this is probably one of the first times in years, I can't even remember. I may have been in like junior high where I didn't watch all 162 baseball games, and this year I will not. At a certain point, I was so bitterly angry at this team, and they didn't believe in themselves. Why the hell should I? They literally walked out there and said, if we don't, we don't. While everyone else, dog shit teams out there, you got Stroman going to New York. You had Bauer going to the Reds. You got teams that have no business making acquisitions, and the Phillies didn't. And literally told us we don't give a shit. Why do I want to watch your product anymore? That's why people don't go to these baseball games. It's absurd. Phillies are killing, man. They are just an embarrassing organization in baseball right now.
You know, it really says something when you didn't watch all the games for this year's team, which was actually competitive, but you watched all the games for those teams that lost 95 games a year.
Yep.
But
you knew it.
Tyler Goodells and Jerome Williams and all those terrible players who put on the Phillies pinstripes.
Yeah.
Because at least you knew what you were getting from them.
You did. And you know, this is... So we've seen the tweets going along a lot recently. So we are now the fifth longest drought from postseason baseball. We are in the conversation with teams like the Miami Marlins, who are perpetual, we're going to sell every good player we've ever had because we can't afford to keep anyone anywhere. The Marlins, the Padres, the Mariners, and the White Sox. Now, the Padres have a great farm system. The White Sox have a great farm system. The Mariners are whatever. They were a team that burst onto the scene this year and then lost more baseball games than anyone I could remember. But that's four teams you do not, and four organizations you do not want to be lumped in with.
Yeah.
This is embarrassing. This is an indictment on Clentac. This is an indictment on every single person in this organization. What a massive, massive failure.
It really is. And especially in a big market like Philadelphia, you have to remain relevant with the other three teams here. You can't go through extended, going on 8-year, 9-year rebuilds. You have to be able to do the quick rebuild where you can turn around and make the playoffs again in 2 or 3 years. And the Phillies, they've just been so poorly mismanaged, or so, should I say, greatly mismanaged, that next year, it'll be 2020, it'll be 9 years since the last time they made the playoffs. And it's totally unacceptable here.
It's completely unacceptable. This team is, and so I was a proponent of not going into the luxury tax this year. Once I saw the completed roster heading into game one of this season, I knew this was not the year they were going to tap into that luxury tax. But they're going to freaking have to.
You got to do it now.
Next season, it doesn't matter what it costs to bring in people. You got to do it. They are the 11th highest payroll in baseball. That's not good enough. Not in Philadelphia. Not in a major market. We don't have a farm system like the Braves do, where they're basically a minor market team, and they have to sit there and have an unbelievable scout department and bringing in all of these Dominican guys, bringing in all of these great draft class players, and turning them into something special. The Phillies are not that. The Phillies are going to have to buy people. It's just what they're going to have to do, and the 11th highest payroll in baseball means you are cheap as fuck.
And what are we, the 4th or 5th biggest market in baseball?
One of, it's New York, it's the Yankees,
Chicago, LA,
Chicago, and Houston, I believe.
I think that in terms of being a sports market, though, Philadelphia is bigger than Houston is.
Philadelphia is bigger than Houston in terms of sports market, but right now in the baseball world, they have a bigger market than what we do.
But we could flip that around, though.
If you start winning baseball games and putting money into your team, yeah, absolutely. And I know it sounds weird to say after putting $500 million into your team and into your organization that yes, you put money in, but you didn't put enough. You absolutely did not put enough. And it's not good enough. And they just seem so lackadaisical. It's so just like whatever. Like we got some of the pieces that we need. Next year we'll get some more. Maybe the following year we'll get some more, and we'll see how this thing goes. We'll keep betting on our guys to get better who have trended in no such way before. Why? Go out there and get a proven piece. Go out there and make the decisions you have to make and pay the money you got to pay. It's embarrassing right now. This team is just not good, and they're run so poorly. And I can't believe, and you mentioned it already, and I agree, you think Kapler's gone after this year. It would not shock me if he is gone 5 minutes after the baseball game on Sunday. I think Sunday's the last game, right?
Yes. Always ends on Sunday.
Yeah. Wouldn't shock me. Would not shock me at all. And it's a shame because it's not his fault. Like, he's certainly obtuse to, like, he doesn't get the Philadelphia market. Like, he's never going to be able to connect to our fan base. But I don't hate him for that anymore. Like, it was frustrating to begin with, but at the end of the day, he's a guy I would like to play for. And he didn't do everything wrong. Like, name me another manager in the history of baseball that could manage the donkey of a roster that we've put together over these last 2 years and done better than what Gabe did.
Yeah, no, I agree that a lot of it isn't his fault, and he's going to get canned, and it's probably going to be a little bit unfair because he doesn't deserve it as much as some other guys do. I think that if the Phillies are going to can anybody, it needs to be Klentak and McPhail before Kapler, but unfortunately, he's going to be the odd man out. And yeah, they probably are going to do it on Sunday because you know what, the Eagles don't play on Sunday. So if the Phillies want to make waves, they can go ahead and do it on Sunday when the Eagles don't play, and they can have their lion's share of the headline for that day.
Yeah, they'll get Sunday and Monday. You know, they won't have their normal Monday morning quarterback stuff, and that's it. And I do think it's going to be him. I disagree with it. I would very much so like that it be McPhail McPhail too, but Klentak is more important. I don't really know what McPhail does. I just hate his smug everything. And speaking of smug, Matt Klentak is the most smug, arrogant prick I've ever in my entire life watched speak. What a piece of shit human he is. That guy, I've never seen someone so disconnected from what reality is. I've never seen someone who like, there are people who sit there and just get Philadelphia. Like, they get the market, they get the people, they get the blue-collar mentality, they get all the cliches that Philadelphia is. And they come in here and they just integrate themselves into this city and into what we are as a people. Klentak's not that guy. He's an ass. That guy does not need to be in Philadelphia. Small market mind, arrogant jerk. Like, he needs to go. He needs to be somewhere else. How okay are you going to be if Matt Klentak makes the next freaking managerial hire here?
I will not be okay, because it's probably going to be another stupid decision.
Gabe Kapler wasn't necessarily a stupid decision.
Well, he wasn't, but it's... Okay, let me rephrase that. It's not going to be the best decision for Philadelphia. Because Matt Klentak, as you alluded to, he's a small market guy. He doesn't like to spend a whole lot of money, and he's probably going to go the cheaper route than the Phillies need to go in terms of their next manager. Their next manager, I'm going to say it right now, it needs to be Joe Maddon.
Well, that's what I said the other week when you had asked.
Joe Maddon's, he's going to be on the way out in Chicago. They're falling apart right now. Their magic number's down to 1 for missing the playoffs, so they're not going to make it. And they're already talking out there about who their next manager is going to be. They've already gone through a few names. I forget exactly who's on top of their list, but the point is, Maddon's going to be available. He's a proven manager. He's won a World Series. He's been to another. The Phillies need to go out there and get him. And I don't trust Matt Klentak to have Joe Maddon at the top of his list.
I don't either. You know, Klentak to me seems like a guy who just doesn't want to be challenged by anybody. He just wants to, you know, this is my team, my everything, and I'm going to make the decisions, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And that's why I think people do feel bad for Gabe right now, and they should. I feel bad for Gabe. He was never really given a shot here. It's tough, and I agree. Maddon for me is the guy. If you're going to go away from Gabe, Joe Maddon's the guy. I listened to High Hopes this morning, and they mentioned Raul Ibanez as a first-year manager. I don't know how much I would trust that, but with Philly ties here, obviously for the 09, and he was here for 10 too, right? 09,
10, I think 11 as well.
Part of 11 maybe?
I think he is all of 11 actually.
Was he?
And then after that he went to the Yankees and it just walk-off home runs.
Yeah, Raul. But interesting. What are your thoughts on another first-year manager here in Philadelphia?
Don't want it.
No.
Quite frankly, I mean, he might be a great manager. I would want him to get a start elsewhere because I don't want another experiment. I want a proven manager. I want a Joe Maddon. I want, Joe Girardi's probably not going to happen, but if we could bring him in, I'd be a fan of that. Just a guy who's been around the block, a guy who's, been to the World Series, won a World Series. You want someone who's proven and can go out there and do the job. Yeah. I'm tired of the experiments.
I think that's probably the right way to go. To steer clear of additional experiments. Saw it with Chris Young and the pitching staff, didn't work. I'm not ready to place blame on Gabe for almost any of this. I think when you have a team that has had the type of run differential that they've had and just the lack of talent they had last year, and then versus the just incomplete roster of this season, what he's been able to do is pretty incredible for a large portion of it. Yeah, I'm with you, man. For me, it's Joe Madden's world. That's what I'm looking for right now. Which it's strange to me because Joe Madden was never someone I loved because he's so quirky and odd. But he's so proven, and it's something I would welcome here in Philadelphia.
How much value do you place on Joe Madden's ability to put a solid coaching staff around him? Because, if he comes in, he's going to bring in a whole new coaching staff.
Of course he is. His hitting coach that he brought with him was John Malley.
Okay, so hopefully he stays away from John Malley.
Well, he's not going to bring John Malley back. I'm just saying, this was a guy that they had. And then they brought in, oh, Jesus. They won the World Series in, 16?
Yes.
With John Malley. And then I don't remember if he wasn't still there in 17, was he, John Malley?
I think he was. 18 was his first year with the Phils.
So 17, he was still there. And then 18, the Cubs took, Jesus Christ, I'm blanking on his name, dude from the Red Sox. After, a year removed from winning a World Series with a crazy offense, that was all talent, not John Malley. He will most assuredly bring in an entirely new staff. Chris Young will not be here.
Thank God.
I could see guys like Paco Figueroa hanging around.
Dusty Wathan.
I don't know that Dusty Wathan would because he's Paco is a relatively new guy. Dusty is kind of an organizational brain at this point. It wouldn't shock me if he goes.
He might look for a managerial position somewhere.
He might. It was down to him and Kapler when the decision was made at that time. Obviously he came from managing the AAA club with all of our up and coming youth. And I think it helped to have a familiar face in that locker room for those guys as they were coming up. But at a certain point, man, I think you got to move away from that stuff, and I wouldn't be shocked if Dusty Wathan's gone too. So. But we'll see.
I'll tell you what, though. If they don't go Madden, there's another name that I mentioned before a few times, a kind of a dark horse, Matt Williams.
For his love of Harper?
Yeah, he was Harper's manager for 2 years in DC, and it was one of them was the year that Harper won the MVP back in 2015.
Harper right now in a down year is probably having his second best offensive season collectively and his best defensive season.
He probably is, yeah.
He's dirty. This kid's going to be insane for 12 more years.
It's going to be fun to watch him.
Yeah, so if we could have a Harper Whisperer in here to unlock another level, awesome. Bring him. I don't know if I'd bring him in as a manager.
Maybe
but I'd bring him in
coach.
as something like that. Sorry, by the way, I am still very under the weather, so my voice sounds jacked up. It's because it is. All right, so one more thing I wanted to touch on before we get on to some of our actual topics for the day is I just wanted to thank the Philadelphia Phillies for this gem, making so much waves by making the Harper signing, and then so dramatically underperforming that you miss out the playoffs and make our Philadelphia Eagles have 3 straight road games after we've started the season potentially 1-3. Thank you so much for screwing the Eagles over. We should have been watching playoff baseball in October. This is absurd. I'm so pissed off at that. You have no idea.
I'll tell you who's thankful for it, though. The Flyers. Because they're actually getting greatly increased viewership for their preseason games.
Wow, we're all excited. Did you see Elaine Vigneault on...
You called out Elliott?
Yeah.
That was so funny.
He's like, you can't win with goaltending like that. It's shit. I'm like, I love this guy already. Good for him. All right, so we're going to roll into some of our actual topics that we had. This was just kind of like we don't even know what we're talking about anymore when we're talking about Philadelphia Phillies baseball and here on Kap We Trust.
Fitting for a team that doesn't know what they're doing.
That's what I'm saying. It's so hard to get up and do this show, right? Like every single time we sit down, and you're like, hey, you got to send me the notes for this show, and I'm like, fuck it, they're awful. I don't really know what to talk about right now. But it's been hard. So Bear with us. We're doing just the one show a week, so. All right. Top 3. So these are just some fan stuff that kind of came in, so we're just going to kind of answer them as we go. Top 3 Philadelphia Phillies of 2019.
This is really tough.
Yeah.
I think I got to go Bryce number 1.
I would go JT 1, but Bryce 2.
That's fair. I would go JT a close second.
Yeah.
And
JT is like, I can't remember if he is the most valuable player in baseball or if he's the second most valuable player in baseball, but he's up there in the top in terms of runs saved, and his defense is absolutely insane. Throwing out, he's thrown out the most runners since Lieberthal in like 97.
Something like that,
It's absurd.
It's a shame because, he wouldn't win the award, but if the Phillies were in playoff contention, you're talking a dark horse MVP candidate.
Possibly. He's...
Obviously, it goes probably to Bellinger or Yelich, but...
Yeah, for sure. With these power numbers in 2019, you can't really compete unless you have 45-plus home runs. But a damn good season from him, nevertheless. But yeah, he and Harper right now are the two that are easy. Who else you got?
I'm going to go Scott Kingery. Even though he faded a little bit down the stretch, his batting average, which was up in the 300s at one point, came down to about 260-ish. By and large, a very impressive season. A nice rebound from what was a pretty terrible rookie year. I think that we can expect to see more of this and even better from him in the future. So he's my number 3.
I respect it, and especially because I love Scott Kingery. But I'm going to go Hector Neris. In a bullpen that was injured, and a bullpen that underachieved, a bullpen that was supposed to be a strength, he proved to be the only one that was consistent all season. He had a few hiccups. It wasn't always clean, but he had a very, very successful season for me. And with a bullpen that had so many names going into it that should have been here for 2-3 years of really, really good baseball and really good bullpen usage, he's the only name that's there, and I don't think that was on anybody's top list anywhere. So Hector Neris, while I don't believe he should be a closer, really impressive season from him.
He gets an honorable mention from me. If I wasn't going to go Kingery at 3, I would have gone Neris.
Yeah. Left off that list is Rhys Hoskins, Aaron Nola, Nick Pivetta, jackass. Really made an ass out of a lot of us here in Philadelphia.
Really did, especially a certain host on WIP.
Yeah, man, I feel bad for Jack.
Yeah.
His mentions blow up every time the kid gets the ball.
Unfortunate, because he actually does a really good job with that show, too. He just made one bad prediction there.
Just one. And it wasn't even like he's the only person who predicted that. Like so many people in baseball. He was on articles nationwide. Doesn't matter. Rhys Hoskins, really, really disappointing season right now. So much so that Jim Salisbury put in an article that, and again, I didn't even read the article yet, so I have to read it after this show. But I heard it on, actually, Jack's show on High Hopes with Ian Seltzer. And Salisbury put out a piece saying that Phillies may entertain, rather than extending, which is what we all assumed was going to happen in this offseason, was an extension for Rhys, may entertain that moving him for a starting pitching, or even bullpen pitching at this point, which, as they mentioned on their show, means the organization seems that they may be souring on Rhys Hoskins, the once cornerstone piece here in Philadelphia.
I think I actually mentioned something about that a few episodes ago, about the potential of moving on from Rhys. I was talking in terms of bringing in Rendon and then shifting some guys around and putting in someone else at first base.
Yeah.
But I would not be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not here next year.
I just don't know how you can move a guy at his absolute lowest value. It just seems so Philadelphia Phillies to me.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm 100% in support of moving him. I think that they need to have a little bit of patience, and hopefully he'll rebound next year. But it's a possibility. It's something that we have to be aware of.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of him. I do think he was very much so a victim of John Malley. I don't think he's ever really reached his potential here. But at the end of the day, man, I just can't envision moving a guy who we pictured as a cornerstone of the Philadelphia Phillies, and sure enough, one down season, we're going to say you're gone at your lowest value. It's nothing makes sense in my brain about him.
Man, it's crazy. On opening day, he hit the grand slam that gave all of Philadelphia a baseball boner. And then by the end of the season, everybody was completely flaccid.
I don't even know that it took the entire end of the season. I think by like June. All right. So let's see. Sorry again, by the way. Very ill. Sounding like hell right now. All right. So we got another question, and was the 3 biggest question marks of the players that are on the roster right now heading in the next season. So we did already touch on Hoskins, so let's not talk on him right now. Let's talk about additional pieces here that we have some concerns about the longevity of what they're going to bring to Philly.
I wouldn't say concerns because he's been a fairly consistent player. I just don't know if he's going to be back next year. That's Cesar Hernandez. There's a lot of ways in which the Phillies could go with Cesar if they choose to upgrade their infield and shift some guys around and say they want Kingery at second base next year. I think that Cesar's going to be the odd man out.
I hope Cesar's the odd man out. I'm kind of tired of the average second baseman. Like, don't get me wrong, Cesar's a nice player. Like, he's going to hit you 280 to 300, but for the entire second half of this year, like, I don't think he knew what anything other than a single was. Like, the guy just had nothing in him. And it's frustrating. His defense isn't great. His 280 to 300 is fine, but he's not walking. He's so replaceable. It's not even funny. And for guys like us who have long wanted Kingery at second base, I think it's important. The one thing that I would say about this season against Scott Kingery is he's changed my mind. I don't think he needs to just be a second baseman. I think he can play all over the diamond every night, and he's going to find success. And I think that in today's baseball, and if Joe Madden is going to be the future manager of the Philadelphia Phillies,
there's your Ben Zobrist right there.
There's your Zobrist, who's followed Madden everywhere. So to have a tool like that is incredibly important. And if the organization views Kingery as that piece, maybe Cesar's still here, and until Stott and Luis Garcia are ready for the big leagues, and if Luis Garcia even bounces back from a really, really crappy year. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Cesar is definitely one that we don't know what's going to happen with him going into next season. Vince Velasquez for me is one. So he's a guy that I've never wanted to see in the starting rotation ever again. I used to want to at least see what he had in the bullpen as a consistent back arm piece. Well, I don't want to see that shit either. So I would like Vince Velasquez to not be a Philly.
I'm with you on that. Although I think I mentioned in the last episode I would not be completely discontent if he's the 5 starter.
No, if he's the 5 starter, it is what it is. Like that. Look, because you mentioned it last week. You're like, look, if he only gives you 4 or 5 innings every 5th day, but there are 4 or 5 innings where an offense is significantly better than what it was for a lot of this year, it really doesn't matter. Like, 5th starter on a good baseball team with a great offense is basically good.
What do you expect out of a 5th starter? He's going to give you 5 innings of 4 runs, maybe, and that's pretty average for a 5th starter, is it not?
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I think the hardest part about that is, and this is my third one, is Jake Arrieta. $20+ million next year that he is owed. He's coming off of a bone spur injury. He's got a terrible attitude. One of the worst signings that we've had. The only starting pitching signing that Clentac has made, and it was garbage. He's going to have a role here. It's going to be the 4th or 5th starter. I just don't know that I want that to happen. Like, to me, I'd almost just freaking release the guy. Like, trade him for a sack of baseballs. I don't really care. I just don't want him on the Philadelphia Phillies anymore.
What's the financial penalty? Do you know off the top of your head if they release
full contract?
Full contract. So you're paying $20 million for nothing
to not play him.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And there's going to be no team in the market for him either.
That's what I mean. Like, we would have to. It would be like a Jay Bruce situation. We would have to sit there and say, listen, we'll pay $18.5 million of this contract if you guys just fucking take him off our hands. Like, to get $1.5 million relief, like, not really gonna happen. So it's interesting. I don't know, and you know it. I know if we were to sit there and trade him to like the freaking A's or something, the A's would turn him into something that like a serviceable number 3.
Something like
the Phillies are just a dog shit organization. But those are some of our question marks. Do you have any other question marks on the roster right now?
Well, it's one that we talked about last week. It's Corey Dickerson. He's going to be demanding a fairly decent payday.
You would think, but the guy can't stay healthy.
He can't stay healthy. That's the biggest thing. And the Phillies, they have a relatively crowded outfield once Kutch comes back from his injury. They've got some talented guys coming up. They've got Hazley already up. They've got Moniak.
I'd rather Hazley in center field every day.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
So I think that Dickerson, as good as he is when he's healthy, I think he's the odd man out.
I would love Corey Dickerson back on this team, and I think that his now season-ending injury helps his chances of being a Philadelphia Philly next year because he's once again hurt, and he's just not going to make the money he deserves or the long-term contracts that he might deserve because he can't stay freaking healthy. I'd love a platoon situation with a 33-year-old coming off an ACL and Andrew McCutchen, and then a broken-bodied Corey Dickerson. I think that the two of them could really help share that load out there in left field.
Hey, as long as one of them's healthy at all times.
That's it. That's it. And then Roman Quinn can pitch out of the bullpen and be our fifth outfielder.
Oh man, I'd rather have Roman Quinn on the mound than have Juan Nicasio out there.
Juan Nicasio is just not a good pitcher. He is so not good. But all right, so. Those are most of our question marks here. I do still like Joe Berardi's thought on the potential of moving Gene Segura, who did not have a Gene Segura season. It's weird to say because he hit 280 something this year.
Yeah, but when you consider the fact that he's hitting 350 until June,
when you consider the fact that his 3-year averages have him hitting, I think 310. With a 353 or something on base percentage, and like a 435 slugging. I don't even remember what the number is. He's not good. Like, this is not a good season. He's a terrible fielder. He should not be playing shortstop every day.
He's out of shape.
Maybe. I mean, that's his body type, body style. I think it's just hard to maintain. But he's just not that guy. Like, we were assuming we were going to get like you mentioned, a guy who was hitting 350. I wasn't expecting 350, but I'm expecting 300, 310. At least serviceable defense. He's one of the worst defenders in the league, and he's not hitting the crap out of the baseball. He went on like a 2.5-month cold streak where he was garbage. I don't know. Maybe they move on from him. Maybe they make Kingery the shortstop and they keep Cesar. I don't know what they're going to do.
I would almost favor that over keeping Segura.
I don't know. I would bet on Segura bouncing back, but personally, I'd be okay with Hazley in center field every night. Kingery at shortstop. He adapted to the position towards the second half of last season. He's serviceable enough there. He's not going to play any worse defensively than Segura. Sliding Segura over to second base, letting him play there. Third base is obviously a hole at that point. You got to throw, $280 million at Rendon? Something like that?
Do it.
Like, that's what you have to do. Or you're just banking on the fact that Alec Boehm is going to be up by, May or June at the latest? Like, I don't know.
You got to throw money at Rendon.
They do. No matter what, you got to throw money at Rendon. So yeah, a lot of question marks. This is going to be an off season where they're going to need to find a new manager, we assume, possibly a new GM. I don't think the GM thing's going to happen, but you never know. You need to find basically an entire bullpen. I mean, you have Hector Neris, Adam Morgan will be back next year, hopefully healthy. Sir Anthony Dominguez, maybe. Who else is there?
Nobody.
Jose Alvarez.
Robertson's out for the year.
I can't remember if Robertson's out all of next year. I don't know if Jose Alvarez's contract is beyond the season or not. But he could totally come back. I mean, he had a nice season.
He played well for us.
But Ranger Suarez. Like, we need an entire bullpen. We need a third baseman, an entire bullpen, and 4 starting pitchers. Yeah. Like, holy shit.
It's a lot of ground to make up.
This is going to be a ridiculous offseason all over again.
It's a lot
I just
of ground
don't
to
get
make
it. So, the guy who sent us in and said they wanted 3 question marks, well, we have about 45. So we'll see how this offseason goes for the Philadelphia Phillies. Evaluating Harper's season overall. So we mentioned a little earlier, the guy, this is going to be his second best overall offensive season and his best defensive season. It's a really, really good first year. Like, it was a slow starting year, and I think it's to be expected. You mentioned it before, he was a guy who didn't buy his house until 3 months into the season. His wife was pregnant. He had a kid. Moving cities from minor market dog shit Washington, D.C. to here. That's a lot of life change for you right there. Signing the richest contract in baseball history for 5 minutes until Trout upped him. It's a lot. So the slow start for me was expected. But when you take a look at this Harper season, man, it's really good. It's really good. Maybe it's not like 2019 power, like hungry good, but it's really fucking good.
Yeah, and everybody loves to go out there and judge a guy based on statistics, and they love to look at the fact that he's only been hitting in the 250s throughout the season. The fact that his WAR is 3.6, which is lower than a lot of guys out there. The fact that so many players have hit over 40 home runs and he hasn't reached that mark. There's been a lot going against him, as you just alluded to. And by and large, despite that, he's played really well. He's been great defensively. I believe he set a career high for outfield assists this season.
I think he tied his career high.
He also, I think he tied the Phillies team record for single season.
Wouldn't shock me.
Something like that. And yeah, he's done great defensively, which a lot of people didn't think that he would. A lot of people thought that he was going to be a below average right fielder, and it turns out he is one of the best defensive right fielders in the game, and maybe even Gold Glove candidate out there.
He's really good, man. He's super athletic, and he's very aggressive, and he makes really good and smart reads this year. That was one thing that was always kind of a knock on him. His aggression led to poor reads, where he was throwing, ahead of runners, allowing guys to get second base and putting another person in scoring position because of his riskiness. He was just really smart this year. I mean, last year he had to play center field a lot. He's played hurt a handful of years out there in the outfield. This year he got his $13 million, 13 years for $330. He's the guy, and damn it, he played that way, man. I'm very encouraged by the Harper season. I've been encouraged from it from the start. I don't feel poorly on him at all.
And you just mentioned that he stayed healthy. That was another question, because he had some injury issues down in DC. He had, I think, it was like a sprained knee the one year. It was an ACL or something.
I was actually at the Phillies game because it was another MVP-ish kind of a year for him. I was at the Phillies game that night, and I saw the replay of him running to first base, and he slipped on the bag and his knee hyperextended, and it was bad. I don't know how he didn't tear everything in his knee, and he took the last 6 weeks of the season off and came back for the playoffs. Not okay. Like, he wasn't healthy, and he didn't look healthy in the playoffs. He looked bad.
Yeah, and he had, I think, 2 or 3 seasons that were cut short by injury, or at least he missed a significant portion of the season with injury. He stayed healthy this year.
Yeah.
That's an encouraging sign, because for a guy who has been injury prone over the course of his career, he went out there, and if they needed him to, he would have played all 162 games.
For sure. He mentioned long from the start of the season there was something he wanted to do. He doesn't want to not be out there. There were a handful of times, man, I was freaking the hell out. When he took that pitch off the hand a couple weeks ago, I was like, no way he didn't just break his hand. In a meaningless game where a season is basically over, we're 5.5 games out, he just broke his fucking hand. And he didn't, thankfully.
Earlier in the season when he slid into the wall to make a catch, and he was down for
I was at
a couple
that game,
minutes.
Yeah, against Milwaukee. And he did it on back-to-back plays.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's just, what a baller. So, yeah, I'm left, very positively thinking and evaluating the Bryce Harper year one in Philadelphia. But our Philadelphia Phillies, nevertheless, will not be in the playoffs again. Postseason baseball is not going to happen here in Philadelphia.
No Red October.
No Red October.
Such a shame.
8 years in a row. So let's talk just a little bit about some of our expectations for the postseason as a whole right now. Out of the National League, you have the Braves, the Cardinals, and the Dodgers right now are leading things. Obviously, Washington just clinched the first, and then there is Milwaukee, the Cubs, and the Mets are all fighting for that second wild card spot.
And the Mets are just about eliminated. Their magic number, same as the Cubs, down to 1.
Yes. So, I mean, it's going to be Milwaukee, which good for them, man. I mean, to ball out after Yelich breaks his freaking kneecap, that's pretty cool. I feel terrible for Christian Yelich when he's going to have to be basically the MVP of the season and have to watch his team, which is just brutal. Feel very bad for him. But out of the National League, I think that it's pretty clear that almost everyone should favor the Dodgers right now as your team to beat. Would you agree?
You would think so, but I think the Braves are a more complete team.
Do you?
I think the Braves are much more well-rounded. They've got guys who can do it all on offense. They have Freddie Freeman, who does literally everything. He hits for average. He hits for power. He hits for singles, doubles, everything, drives and runs, draws walks. I think that he's the best all-around hitter in baseball. And they've got all the talent in the world around them. They got Donaldson, they got Acuna, they got Ozzie Albies. They've got a whole bunch of guys who can hit. They've got very good starting pitching. They've got a good bullpen. That's a dangerous team. I think that they're not going to match the Dodgers in terms of wins, but I think they're the better team.
So I think the most dangerous wild card team is an actual wild card team is actually the Nationals. I base so much of postseason baseball off of starting pitching. It's something that is very differently managed now than it ever has been. Like, guys don't go 7, 8, 9 innings for the most part. The Nationals have guys that will. The Nationals have Scherzer, who is arguably the best pitcher in baseball for the last, 7 or 8 years. They have a guy who should be a Philly next year. And then they have not Kyle Korver. That's hilarious. They have Corbin out there. So with those three, man, you run a 3-man rotation out there with those 3 names, like that's damn good. And then you have an offense that has the best pure hitter in baseball in Rendon, has Juan Soto. Victor Robles is fine. It's a good team, man. It's a really good team. Trey Turner's back from his injury and everything.
He announced that rudely last night. Grand Slam.
Well, that was a horse shit everything. Like that umpire needs to be fired to begin with. But different stories for different times. But I do think that Washington could make noise, and I think that it would be the perfect we gave them so much shit. We got their guy. We got Harper. Harper boycotted them and came to Philadelphia for a real sports town. And the Nationals, it would make all the sense in the world to screw Philadelphia and just be like, we're gonna be the team to beat right now in the NL. So it wouldn't shock me if it somehow gets down to Washington and LA. So we'll see how it all rolls.
It's funny you say that because I actually see the Brewers beating the Nationals in the wild card game.
Brewers don't have pitching.
I could see the Brewers going on. It'll be like a Eagles sans Carson Wentz kind of deal. The Brewers sans Christian Yelich, everything starts going their way, and they go on this magical run and reach the World Series. But I still think the Braves are going to be the team out of the NL.
All right, let's transition over to the American League. You have the Yankees, the Houston Astros. Minnesota hasn't yet locked it up. They have Minnesota, Oakland, Tampa Bay, and Cleveland. So things are bunched up over there. Cleveland right now is on the outside looking in, just a half game out.
That's crazy. They have like 95 wins and they might miss the playoffs.
They have 93 wins, yep. AL's better baseball right now.
It's more top-heavy is what it is.
Yes, that's very true. Because, after that, you got Boston was the next closest team, and they're 11 and a half games out.
And then all the other teams are under 500.
Yeah, it's absurd. But, I mean, look, the Yankees are unbelievable, and Houston is unbelievable. And then the rest are really interesting. Like, there's nothing super sexy about Minnesota. There's never anything sexy about Oakland. Tampa Bay is just unbelievably smart. And then Cleveland's just like that gritty, just we're going to find a way. You know, how would you have ever expected trade Trevor Bauer? I mean, he's a freaking nutcase, but trade Trevor Bauer and then go on a run and get to the freaking postseason?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how that worked out.
It's nuts. All right, so let's go this way. Of Oakland, Tampa Bay, and Cleveland, which team would you be most excited to watch in the postseason right now?
I'd say Cleveland. They've got some exciting stars. They got Ramirez, they got Lindor, Yasiel Puig. I wouldn't classify him as a star player, but he's always an exciting guy to watch.
Yeah,
they've got a fun team out there in Cleveland. So out of those three teams, they're certainly the least boring.
The least boring. That's funny. Yeah, man. I agree. I think Cleveland right now would just be a joy to watch if they sneak themselves into the postseason.
And we know what they can do too. Just 3 years ago, they were in the World Series. They were 1 win away.
Yeah,
blew a 3-1 lead.
Yes, they did. So I just Cleveland's a fun team. You're right. I would second on that for me would be Tampa Bay, just because nothing ever makes sense about Tampa Bay, like looking talent-wise, but they're just so freaking smart and find ways to utilize guys and their skill sets in ways that other teams can't. They're just smart. They're good.
They're very well run. I mean, they managed to put together a high 90-win team despite having 10,000 people in the stands every night. It's hard to do. It's hard to win that many games when you're not bringing in any money from the fans.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of things right down there.
They really do. Who do you think comes away in the American League right now as the team to represent?
Oh, man, it's going to be an absolutely epic ALCS between the Yankees and the Astros. It's going to be back and forth. It's going to go 7 games. I have the Yankees. You
have the Yankees? All right, so I'm taking Houston again. I just think that they're incredibly, incredibly good, and they're getting healthy, and they have, Jesus Christ, I mean, another rookie who's just, everything about them, they're insane. They're absolutely insane. Garrett Cole is going to, he's going to do Garrett Cole things again, and he's going to not come to Philadelphia because they're going to win another freaking World Series.
He's so filthy. You see that pitch that he threw, I think it was last night? A slider literally...
Oh, that took someone's knees out, basically?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, he's filthy. So I have Houston coming out of that one as well. So you think that it's going to be a Houston-Atlanta? Or, no, you have New York. So
I have Yankees-Atlanta.
Yankees-Atlanta, wow.
Rematch of 2 World Series in the 90s, I think it was. 96 and 98, or 99. I think it was 96 and 99.
Possibly, yeah. I'm trying to remember. But yeah. Look, postseason baseball is going to be really, really good this year. It sucks that the Philadelphia Phillies aren't in it, but on the positive spin on that is you can watch unemotionally about these games now and just enjoy baseball for what it is. And one thing that's super cool about it is the fact that there are all smart organizations in there right now who play baseball the way that it's supposed to be played in 2019. Like, there's not a single team in there that doesn't operate with incredibly smart play. Everything. Smart baseball players, smart organization. Like, there's no team that just goes out there and is just like, hey, it's 2001 and we just mash things. Like, that's just not how that works. They're smart, well-run organizations, and it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun to watch this postseason, as much as it sucks that the Phillies are not in it.
You know what I'm excited about? I feel like there's going to be multiple series that go down to a deciding game in extra innings.
I hope so. I absolutely hope so.
Like,
I take that back. The Nationals fucking suck. I hate the Nationals.
Yeah, they're going to lose in the wild card game.
They're a dog shit organization, but with that pitching staff, I believe them. But yeah, to get back to your thing, 100% agree. It would not shock me at all if shit goes down to extra innings there.
We might see a World Series just like the one in 2016 that goes, what was like the 11th inning, Game 7?
Oh yeah, that was crazy. I have a bunch of souvenirs and shit from that. Al shot that.
You had a hat somewhere.
Yeah, there's a hat. There's the program that's there. Yeah, pretty wild stuff over there. All right, man. So do you have any final thoughts on this final episode of In Kap We Trust before Kapler's no longer the freaking manager of the Phillies?
Well, I think the next episode might be In Madden We Trust.
It might be. We're gonna have to figure this out. I'm gonna have to post like, what we call this? Like, maybe just the McPhail countdown. Like, I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out a new name for this pod. So we very well may be having like an emergency podcast of, man, I have to weep because Gabe Kapler's no longer my manager.
Such a disappointing McFailure of a season.
Not great, man. Not great. All right, man. So my final thought is, for all of your private parties, for all of your grad parties, for whatever you got. If you have live music and you want live music, call Michael Mead. You can go and you can find him on Facebook. It is Michael Mead Music. He is a solo guitar player. Also occasionally brings a female voice with him as well. But he does private parties, different bar events. So if you are a bar and you have live music at your bar and you would like a good musician and great singer to perform for you, reach out to Michael Mead Music. And if you are doing a home event, what you should also do is call Just Food. It's 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. Make it a double AMYP event. Go for Just Food for the food and Michael Mead for the music. That are both based out of Bucks County here in PA. Rob, anything from you?
And also, if you're sitting on your ass in front of your computer right now, go on iTunes, give us a rating, give us a review, or else I will find you.
He will. And if you are an Uber driver of any kind, bring me soup and anything else that would make me feel less AIDSy. That is going to be it here for In Kap We Trust. We will possibly be back with a different name next week. I don't know. Look out for it. But thanks for sticking with us for a less than stellar Philadelphia Phillies season. It's been both fun and maddening, but we will also bring you some postseason coverage this year as well, because as we mentioned, the postseason is going to be really, really good this year. We're looking forward to it. So, Rob, for the final time during the regular season, it's been a pleasure.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.